Hi everyone and welcome to this course on HTML5. I'm so happy to have you here. Let's dive in. Alright, so before we dive deeper into the topic of HTML and everything that's related to HTML, you just have to keep in mind the following. The main purpose of HTML5 is to create the structure or the framework of a website. Whereas the main purpose of CSS is to improve the layout and design of a website by using HTML tags. Alright, so HTML is like your bones, basically. It's like your bones. And CSS is like your skin. They are both required to make a perfect body of website. That's a good illustration for you to keep in mind. Alright, so what do we actually mean by HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. HTML5 is the latest version of HTML and is considered to be more effective. The small difference between the latest and the previous versions of HTML is the introduction of new and different tags. So whenever there is an update, there are new tags that are introduced. We will have some new HTML tags. Okay, so we said previously that HTML is like the bones, blood, and veins and structure of creating a website, while CSS is like the hair, skin, and nails of it. Okay, let's now see the key features of HTML5. So first, HTML is relatively easy to learn and modify. Second, you can add different links and references in HTML5. Third, you can display various documents on different operating systems like Mac, Windows, and Linux, and so on. Fourth, you can also add different audios, videos, and graphics by coding in HTML5 and make your website entertaining to users. Fifth, to make it simple, HTML documents are case insensitive, except for the attribute values, which you will see later, but the accepted standard for HTML is to use lowercase letters because they are easier to write and read. So to sum it up, you can keep in mind that HTML is case insensitive except for a few exceptions. Alright, so now that we saw the features of HTML5, let's talk about some of the benefits behind HTML5. First, HTML5 is the language that will help us design and code a website from scratch, like from absolute scratch. Second, HTML5 makes it easier for developers to create terrific websites. Third, users can easily experience those sites regardless of the browser or platform they are using. Fourth, other markup languages such as XML, SGSL are used for developing applications, but HTML5 is the reference when it comes to building websites and is a widely used programming language for website development. So, HTML5 is the reference when it comes to websites, and that's why we're learning it today. So, where and how is HTML5 used in real life? Let's see some concrete examples and try to better understand the use and power of HTML5. So, here is a screenshot of a random website. On the right side, you can clearly see the coding that brought this page to life. This coding consists of HTML tags. Now, if you want to see the coding of any website on the internet, you first need to go to your browser and search for a random website. Let me do this now. Alright, so here you go. I'm now on a website called FinFlow. Once the website has completed loading, press F12 on your keyboard. Alternatively, you can simply right click and then click on inspect. Alright, so once you successfully click on F12, you will see this sidebar as well as the various tags that are used in designing and developing the website. Alright, so we started to explore the power of HTML5. Let's now see what are the editors that should be used when coding with HTML. So, the editors that I recommend are: first, a simple editor like Notepad. This editor is already installed on your device or operating system. Second, Atom. This is also an excellent editor. Third, Sublime Text Editor. It's much better than Atom, but it's still not the one I prefer and strongly recommend. The most premium quality and highly recommended editor that I urge you to install and use is Visual Studio Code. It's one of the most powerful pieces of software out there and by far the most useful. So, Visual Studio Code is the editor that I personally recommend and that I will be using during this course. Okay, so as I said previously, Visual Studio Code is one of the most premium and one of the most powerful editors out there. Let's see how we can install it. First, you have to click on this link. You'll be taken to the Visual Studio Code website, and there you will have an option to download it. Then you click on the download button, and this is how you can download your file. Of course, if you're not using Windows, you'll have the option to download it for the Mac and Linux operating systems as well. So, open your browser and paste this URL. You will see a Visual Studio Coding website and an option to download it. So, just click on it. After clicking on the download button, there will be like 3 options in front of you. Here, you have to click on the operating system that you are using, like Mac, Linux, Windows, etc. You can click on others if you're not using a similar operating system. Okay, so once you click on the download button, you will see an option where you can save your file. And as you can see, the file has now been saved and has started downloading. Okay, like for me, I already have this software installed, so I'll just pause the download for myself, but you can continue downloading it if you don't have Visual Studio Code installed already. So once your software is downloaded, you'll have to open your folder, and here you see some options on your screen. You'll have to select I accept the agreement, then click on create a desktop icon, click next, click on install, and here you go, your software will start installing. Okay, so I wait a little bit for the installation to be completed, then I get an error, which was expected because, as I said, I already have this software installed on my machine. Okay, so now that we installed the code editor, it's time for us to start digging into HTML coding, finally. Let's get started with one of the fundamental HTML topics, tags. A tag is a keyword or a term assigned to a piece of information. We cannot insert data or a command in HTML without tags. We have 2 main tags. We have the opening tags and we have the closing tags. The difference between opening and closing tags is the /. In the opening tags, you will write the name of the tag within angle brackets, and in the closing tags, you have to add a slash after the first angle bracket. Between the opening and the closing tags, you write more tags, or you can write paragraphs, you can add images, or any other content you want displayed. All right, so the data that we write, like right after the opening tags keyword, like inside the angled brackets, is called attributes. First of all, the name of the attribute is given, then its value. In this example, href is the name of the attribute, then contact.html is the value. In order to understand the structure of HTML5, you should first of all know about tags, their benefits and uses. And that's what we're doing here. So I hope that like right now it's much clearer to you what are tags and their basic definition. So we'll explore them deeper as we move forward. No worries, we'll explore them step by step and we'll see like how they work in real life. Alright, so after talking about one of the most important HTML concepts, which is tags, let's see how an HTML5 file is structured. On the screen in front of you, you can see the structure of any HTML5 file. First, we have doc type. This is not an HTML tag, it's just a document file type that will provide information when it runs in the browser. The search engine will identify the file type and know that it's an HTML file. Second, we will have to write opening and closing tags. You can write English in the opening tag, but it's not compulsory. Third, we have the head. In the head, we use title tags, meta tags, and style tags. Style tag is used in CSS, not in HTML. So we'll talk about meta tags for now. Meta tags. So again, in the head tags here, we can add any type of necessary link or references. And when it comes to meta tags, the meta tags manage your website. It's responsible for the way it will run on Google and how it will rank. All of this depends on the meta tags. So first we can see that here it's written car set UTF-8 within the first meta tag. This is a character set that tells us that there will be 8 character types of UTF. To make it easier, just think of UTF-8 as a variable width character encoding used for electronic communication. Okay, now on to the next one. So the second tag here mentions that your file will be opened in Internet Explorer. This can be changed in the settings, but if you write Chrome in your content, it will open in Chrome only. So we'll keep it like this for now. And the third tag mentions the width and height of the device according to your viewport. So whatever device you're using, the width and height will be the same and its initial scale will be 1.0. Next, we have the title tags. Title tags are used to name the documents. When you open a new tab, there will be a name of that website or document, and that is actually the title tag. Next, we have the body. Further tags that will be used are written in the body. So anything apart from the title and apart like from setting up your file, anything else is written in the body tag. So we can only use these tags in the body. Any further tags are written in the body, not in the head or title tags. Okay, and now on to the next lecture. Whenever there is a need to build any project, firstly, you would have to create a main or a root folder. After creating the root folder, you would have to keep the HTML file inside this folder. If you keep the HTML file in any other folder, the browser would not be able to interpret the type of file that has to be searched. In short, just keep in mind that it is required to create a root folder in order to make and run an HTML file. There are many ways to create an HTML5 file, but in our case, as discussed previously, we'll do it with Visual Studio Code. So firstly, we'll have to go to the timeline of VS Code and click on this icon. After clicking on this icon, we'll be able to create a new file by giving it the name we want. So we have to enter the file name and the type of file that we wish to create. In this picture you can see that we chose first file as the file name and .html as the type. If this looks confusing to you, don't worry, we'll see in action how we can do this in Visual Studio Code. Let's go to our text editor and see how we can create an HTML file. Okay, so when you open your Visual Studio program, you will see this interface in front of you. With Visual Studio Code, you can create any type of file, HTML, CSS, Python, JavaScript, and so on. In our case, we'll just focus on creating an HTML file for now. So first click on New File. When you click on it, you can create a new file. So that's what I'll do. You click here to create a main folder for your project. Firstly, I'll make a folder and then I'll name it HTML5. Now click on this icon and you see that a new file was created inside the folder. I'll create a new file inside this folder and name it index.html. Always keep in mind that the file name should be index.html because when your browser runs your website, it will always search for the index file first, and consequently your website will be loaded easily. Okay, so our HTML5 is now ready, but how will we draw its structure? The trick here is just to put an exclamation mark. This will allow us to see two suggestions on our screen. Let's click on the first suggestion, and here you go. Our HTML structure has been built instantaneously. Alright, so in previous lectures we explained what HTML tags are all about. Let's now dig deeper into the most commonly used tags in HTML. We'll start off by introducing heading tags. So what are heading tags? These tags are basically used to give headings to any content or paragraph on the page. There are 6 types of headings and they have different sizes. We have H1, which refers to heading 1, H3, which refers to heading 3, H4, which refers to heading 4, H5, heading 5, H6 refers to heading 6. Let's see in action the different types of headings that we just introduced. Alright, so here I am in VS Code. I created an HTML folder, and inside this HTML folder there is a file named index.html. We'll first make a basic structure of HTML5 within this file. As explained previously, I'll need to write an exclamation mark, then click on the first suggestion, and here you go. We now have a basic HTML5 structure. We can add any type of tag in the body of this structure. So first, we'll use heading tags. The method of writing down a tag is the following. You simply write the name of the tag, and VS Code will automatically give you a suggestion. Then when you see the suggestion you needed, you simply hover over it and press enter, or you simply click on it directly, like with your mouse. Okay, after that, whatever we type here will be written automatically inside the tags. For example, I'm now writing hello world. I'll save the file now. Simply click Ctrl S to save your file, and here you go, the file is saved. Then right click on this tab that you see here right in front of you here, click on copy path, then I'll open my browser, go and paste my link, and here you go. You can see the result. I've written my first tag and I can clearly see the output. So I have my tag on one side in the VS Code, and on the other I have the result in the browser. Similarly, in a similar manner, I'll now go back to VS Code and do the same with other tags. So I'm now doing The same with the h2 tag this time instead of the h1 tag. Let me go back to the browser, and here you go. You can see the result. The font size of h1 is quite large, and the fonts will be smaller and smaller as you move across the sequence. Alright, so let me go back to VS Code and write all the 6 tags we introduced. Let's see the result in the browser. I refresh the page, and here you go. You can see the result and the hello world sequence that's contained inside my tags of different font sizes. Perfect. Let's now move on. Let's now discuss the types of quotation and citation tags that are used in HTML5. Okay, so number one, the B tag is used for bold text. So the strong tag is used for important text. B and strong are almost similar. I is used for italic text. EM is used for the emphasized text. Mark is used for the marked text. We use it to mark or highlight something. Small refers to small text. If you want to show the text smaller, we will use the small text. Del refers to deleted text. We use it when we have to delete any text or mark a strike line. Ins refers to inserted text. We use it when we want to underline the text. Sub refers to subscript text, when we want to write anything particular as a subscript text. Sup for superscript text. Let's go to VS Code and see how these tags work. So, we are here in VS Code. Let's implement all the tags that we just introduced. Firstly, I'm writing tag B to make the text bold. Then I'll enter any text, let's say hello everyone. Now I'll press Ctrl S to save it. The file will be saved. I've copied my link. I'll paste my URL in the browser, and here you go. We have the result as expected. You can see that the text is in bold. Secondly, I'm writing a strong tag. As I told you before, there's not much difference between bold and strong tags. So when I'm back here in my browser, you'll be able to see the output. Okay. Thirdly, I'll use the italic text to make the text italic, and here you can see the result. Now I'm using the emphasized tag. I'm copying the same text here and we'll check the result. And as you can notice, italic and emphasized tags are almost similar. Now I'll use the mark tag. I'm entering a text here and we'll check the result in the browser, and here you go. You can see that the text is highlighted automatically. Next, I'll use the small tag. By using this, you can see the results in the browser as well. The font is indeed very small. Now, if I want to cross out or delete any text, I'll use the del tag. By using the same method, you can check the results in your browser. Next, I'll use the ins tag. Inserted text is used to underline a text. The same procedure will give you the results in your browser. And here you go, you can clearly see them here. Okay, next, if you have to raise a number to a power, we'll use the superscript tag. As you can see, I've written 50. Now, using the superscript tag, I write the power I have to assign to the given amount, let's say 5. And by using the same procedure as before, you can see the results in your browser. Now, if I have to give the power in a subscript format instead, I'll use this tag and you can see the results. The subscript tag is mostly used to write a chemical reaction. Like here, for example, I'm writing H2O, which is the chemical symbol for water. Alright, so I went over all the quotation and citation tags we introduced earlier, and now on to the next lecture. The HTML comment tag is used to add text to an HTML document without including that text in the web page. So the main purpose of comments is to add valuable information or to add tags that can be used later in HTML coding. I don't know if you're familiar with Python, like the Python programming language, but it's exactly the same like when we add the hashtag and then you add some comments inside your Python code. So this commented code will not be executed, it will not run. It's just for our information, like for our own information, and for us to better understand the code. Okay, and yeah, I mean, that's exactly how it works in HTML. Alright, now back to my HTML. You can see in this document that I have taken an h1 tag with a hello word written in it. It hasn't been commented yet. If I comment it, it will still show in the editor but would not run on the browser. So it will not have any impact on the page that I'm building. Let's now see in action how this works in VS Code. I've opened the file here. I'll use the tag h1, but it's not compulsory. You can use any type of tag you want. Now, I'm writing something, let's say hello world again. After commenting, I'll save the file. Then I'll go to my browser and paste the URL. Now you can see the result. The code is functioning properly. Okay, if I want to comment this line of code, I can just press Ctrl and /. And as you can see, we don't see the hello word again in our browser. There are no more outputs coming from this piece of code. Why? Because we simply commented it, so it will no longer have any impact on the code. Okay, so in fact, when I commented this line of code, it remained in the code editor. You saw it in the code editor, but wasn't displayed on our web page in the browser. And that's exactly the purpose of commenting codes in HTML. Okay. And now on to the next lecture. Now let's talk about HTML5 attributes. So first of all, you should keep in mind that all the elements do have attributes. And these attributes play a specific role. So what's the role and use of attributes? They simply provide additional information about elements, and they are always written at the start of HTML5 tags. To write an attribute, you write the name and then the value of the attribute. For example, name equal value. So again, what's the use of attributes? Let me answer this question. What's the use of attribute? HTML5 attributes are mostly used to give width, height, and color. So they help us give properties to HTML elements. Next, HTML5 attributes are useful for form tags. The form tag is used to create an HTML form for user input. It helps us create labels, field sets, buttons, and everything that we need in a form. Next, we have inline CSS. Inline CSS is also used as an HTML5 attribute. Don't worry if this sounds new or complex to you. The more you practice coding with HTML and CSS, the more familiar you will become with the different concepts that we're talking about. Okay, next you have the ID and the class attributes. So ID and class are both HTML attributes. The ID attribute specifies a unique identity to an HTML element, while the HTML class attribute specifies one or more class names for an element. Don't worry again if this sounds complicated to you. We'll explore all these topics one by one. We'll explore them deeper and deeper as we move forward. Alright, let's now talk about styling in HTML5. As far as the style of HTML is concerned, CSS is the go-to language for it. Usually HTML is styled by CSS. This means that you can use a few attributes of CSS to style your HTML content. For example, the font tag is used to give color to the text. So if you want to change the color of your tag, you'll need to use the font tag. Let's go to VS Code and see how all of this works in action. Okay, so here I am in VS Code. I'm using a simple bold tag, and then I'll paste that URL in the browser. You can see the result. The text is simply bold and the background is white. Now, if I want to change the color of the text, I will edit the tag. I have copied that bold text and pasted it inside the font tag. Now I'll use an attribute of color. First, I've written the name of the attribute, color in this case, and then the value. For the value, let's pick the pink color. Using the same method, let's check the result in the browser again, and here you go. You can see that the text has a pink color. Okay, so if you want to change the color, you can do that by following the same steps. Let's say I want to change the text color to red. Let me do this, and here you go. You can see the results of this maneuver as well. Okay, now, if you want to change the background color, then you have to go to the body tag and write bg color equal to the color that you want. Pick a color and save the file. For the sake of this example, I'll pick the green color, and here you go. You can see the results in your browser. Alright folks, so this is how you can use different attributes for styling. Okay, so let's now talk about anchor tags. These links are used to link one website to another. Suppose we are going through a web page on which we can see some text in blue characters. You probably know it already. If you click on these blue keywords, you'll be taken to another web page. See here, for example, I'm now on a Wikipedia web page. You can see the various links given on this page, and when I click on one of them, I'll be taken to another page. So all of this work is done through hyperlinks and anchor tags. So all these links that you see here on the screen in front of you are known as hyperlinks. Let's go to a random website and see how this works. The website that I just opened is moz.com. Links given on this website are the following: learn more about page authority, learn more about domain authority. These all are known as hyperlinks. When I click on any of these links, a new website will open. Let's click on one of them. So for the sake of this example, I'll pick linkedin.com. You can see that the new page just opened. It's linkedin.com, as expected. Alright, so I'm showing you all of this just to make you familiar with hyperlinks, to make sure that you understand like what hyperlinks are used for. Okay, now let's move back to VS Code, where we'll learn how to create these hyperlinks with the help of anchor tags. Let's now discuss the use of anchor tags. So when I write A, like the letter A, okay, so when I write A, like the letter A, I automatically receive suggestions. I'll click on the first suggestion that I receive regarding the A tag. It's the anchor tag that we will be using. Let me write youtube.com here. I save the file, I open the link in the browser, and here you go. You can see the result right in front of you. The text output I got here on the page is colorful and underlined. Now, if I click on it, the page refreshes, but nothing happens. I can click on it over and over again, nothing will happen. Why is nothing happening? Simply because I haven't put anything in the href attribute. I've just put the text, but not the link that it should take me to. So the href attribute specifies the URL of the page that you need to go to. Okay, that said, I need to paste the link of youtube.com inside the quotation marks of the href attribute. Okay, done. And now when I go back to the page I created, I click on it, and here you go. The website takes me to the YouTube page. This is how you can link any website to your web page. Now, if you want the website to open in a new tab, simply add target equals quotation mark underscore blank at the same location where I'm adding it now. Okay, so I save the file and I check the output in my browser, and here you go. The YouTube page now opens up in a completely new tab. That's amazing. Images play a significant role in any website. So in this lecture we'll learn about image tags by using HTML and make sure that our website is attractive and appealing to users. You can see a screenshot on your screen right in front of you. In this picture I used an image tag and some attributes. You can clearly see that this is an image tag from the keyword img. Then you can see the attributes src and alt. The first is src and the second is alt. The src or source attribute indicates the location of images. It specifies the pathway of the picture. The alt or alternative attribute works when our website is slow and can't load properly. When this happens, picture wouldn't display on our screen, but the text will be displayed instead. The user will then know that there should have been a picture right there and that they cannot see it because their internet connection is so slow, or that the browser is not loading properly, or it has some problems. So they see this instead. They see the text instead. Alright, let's now move back to VS Code and create an image. First, I'll create an image folder. I'll go to the HTML folder and we'll create a new folder named images. I'll keep all my images inside this image folder so that the browser could search for them easily. You can see I've kept some pictures here in this image folder. I have pic 1, pic 2, pic 3 inside this folder. When adding the name of the image in the tag, remember the format of your images. In this case, it's pic1.jpg, otherwise your images will not be displayed. Apart from that, you need to keep in mind that the image tag has an opening tag only. Don't use closing tags with image tags. Okay, let's now discuss the right way to attach the file. As you can see, I have a folder named HTML5, and inside this folder I created an image folder. I write the name of this image folder first, then I'll write pic1.jpg. Regarding the alt attribute, I'll simply add some text I want to be displayed in case there is any problem. Okay, so I now save this file by clicking on Ctrl S. Then, as usual, I copy the file path, I paste it in my browser. The browser runs and checks the image. And here you go. You can see the image in the browser. You might be thinking, if I make any mistake regarding the syntax of the image location, then what happens? Let's go and see what would happen in that case. So as you can see, if the name of the folder is incorrect, then the browser will only show what we wrote inside the alt tag and not the image. Alright, now I'll use one more image and source. And here you go, you can see the output. We now have two images next to each other. Let's practice and add one more image again. But if you don't want to make any folder, then you can cut a picture from the images folder and paste it in the HTML5 folder instead. As you can see now, the picture is displayed alongside the index.html folder. That was the main folder that we created. And if you have any other folder, then you need to put the name of that folder inside your source attribute. If I give any wrong source, then the images would not be displayed successfully. Okay, so now, since I changed the folder name for picture 3, I can also modify it here. So I need to remove images /. Okay. I'm now back in my browser. I refresh the page and here you go. We now have 3 images. Alright, so here's one quick thing I wanted to show you. If I move picture 3 to the HTML5 folder, but don't do the necessary changes. So let's say I move the picture to the HTML5 folder, but don't do the changes in my code. I don't do any changes regarding the path of the picture. Like if I keep it images/picture picture3.jpg, you will see that we will have some problems when I go back to my browser and I refresh the page. That's why you have to make sure that the path is correct. The last things that we'll see in this lecture are the width and the height. So after displaying your images, you can give them some width and height. To do this, I need to add attributes of the width and height. Let's say it's 300 pixels for the height and 500 pixels for the width. I go back to my browser and the width and height of picture 3 will be changed when I refresh the page. So they have changed accordingly, according to my inputs, according to my HTML code. Alright, the next tag that we will study is the paragraph tag. All the tags and elements we use in HTML are used for a specific purpose. They play a significant role when it comes to SEO. For example, we use the heading tags for the headings, list tags for listing, and the paragraph tags to create paragraphs. And all of these tags will have a major impact on our SEO, on the SEO of the website, basically. If you don't know what SEO is, it's simply the process of maximizing the number of visitors to a particular website by ensuring that the site appears high on the list of results returned by search engine. Okay, so here you're looking at the screenshot of a code. We have one P for the opening tag and another P for the closing tag. I've written some text inside these P tags, so this is the syntax of the paragraph when it runs. Let's have a look at it. Alright, so in VS Code, I'll need to use the P tag for paragraph, then I enter my paragraph content. For simple text generation, I'll need to write lorem followed by the number of words I need. So let's say I need 50 for now. Okay, so here you go, we have an automatically generated paragraph. I'll save the file by pressing Ctrl S, and then as usual, I'll copy the file path. Let's check the result in the browser, and here you go. We have our paragraph generated. Now, let's practice and create another paragraph. I save the file, then I check the results in the browser, and here you go. We have 2 paragraphs now. Okay, so now, if you want to make your text italic, you can use the tag I, then cut the text and copy paste your paragraph in that tag. Try to follow exactly what I'm doing. I now go to my browser, refresh the page, and here you go. We now have our first paragraph in italic. Let's now talk about break tags. Alright, so when we talk about break tags, it means you want to convert one line into 2 lines, or 3 lines, or more. This will make your sentence appear as a paragraph, rather than a single sentence or line. Okay, so how do you do that? On the screen in front of you, you can see the syntax of the break tag. First, you can see that we have a paragraph in between the opening and closing tag. If you want a break at a specific location and want to break your line into 2 lines, you'll need to use the BR tag. You can see how it's done in the screenshot in front of you. To make things clearer, let's go to VS Code and see how we can do this in action. Okay, so first I have to write a paragraph using the opening and closing tags that we saw previously. If I go to my browser, you can see the result. We say that this paragraph is inline. Inline elements are simply those which only occupy the space bounded by the tags defining the element, instead of breaking the flow of the content. Okay, so now I want to break these lines. I will add a break after the question mark of the first sentence. Let me go back to VS Code and do this. And here you go. We can see the result in the browser. I can add as many BR tags as I want. Okay, so let me add another one here. I refresh the page and here you go. We have yet another break. Okay, now on to the next topic that we'll explore in this course, table tags. So we use table tags to create tables on our website. It's quite simple. There are 4 kinds of table tags. First, we'll write table tag in the opening and closing tag. This will help identify the table. We also use a border attribute to give a border to the table. Second, we have the tr tag. It stands for table row. You can use the tr tag to refer to table rows. Third, we have the th tag. It stands for table head and is used to create headings for the table. Fourth, we have the td tag. It stands for table data and is used to make columns. Now in this picture you can see how I have used these tags depending on the number of rows and columns required. Do not worry if it looks too complicated to you, I'll explain everything as we move forward. Alright, let's now go to VS Code and see how all of this works. Okay, so here I am. Let me first write the table tag, and then I'll write the tag tr. Next, I'll use the tag th. In the first tag, I write a serial number. Then I create a new th tag and write names in this tag. Then again, I create yet another th tag for the age. Okay, so what did I just do? I use 3 th tags to create 3 headings in my table. Now I'll move on to the next row and create tr tags for my second row. Then I will create some td tag in it for the table tag. So first I'll put a serial number, let's say 1. Then I use another td tag and add the name Alan. Then again I create a new td tag and put the age of the person, let's say 40. Okay, so I'm all set now. I save the file and copy the file path. I go to my browser to check the output. So as usual, I'll paste the URL here and you can see the result. You can notice that the border is not visible. Let me fix this by using a border attribute. So here I am in VS Code. I'll add the border attribute and give it a value of 1 pixel. So I'll add the border attribute and give it 1 pixel. And here you go. You can see the result in the browser. Problem solved. Okay, now let's say I want to add some text after Alan. How do I do this? Simple. I just need to go back to VS Code and write some text after Alan. I'll write Joe here. I go to my browser again and here you go. We can see the result. Next, let's say I want to add a row to my table. How do I do it? I'll simply need to create 1 more row using the tr tag. Then I give some data using td. I put the serial number, name and age. Then I go to my browser, refresh the page and here you go. Okay, let's practice more and add 1 more row. So I'll need to create 1 more tr tag and add the data inside the td tags. Let me write 3 for serial number, then a name, then an age. All in the td tags. All of this in the td tags. We check the result in the browser and here you go. As expected, we add a row with all the information regarding that person. Now, it's clear that the width of the table cells are too small. So to fix this, let's write some code and increase the width in VS Code. So you'll need to write the width attribute in the opening tag. I'll put it equal to 200 pixels. I go back to my browser and here you go. We can clearly see the result on our screen. If you want to increase even more, it's possible. You put 300 instead of 200 or okay, so just play around with it and once you like a specific size, just stick to it. Next, let's center our table and move it to the center of our page. To do this, just write align equal to center in the opening tag. and then go back to your browser to see the result. Next, if we want to align the text inside our cells, we can do the following. Simply enter the attribute in the table row where you want to center the text, then go to your browser, refresh the page, and check the result. Okay, next, if you want to adjust the background color, you can also do that. Go to VS Code and in the opening tag, simply write BG color equals to yellow or to whatever color you want. We go back to our browser, we refresh the page, and as expected, our background color was changed to yellow. Now, if you also want to change the text color, then simply use the font tag where you want to change it. Alright, folks, so this is how you create an HTML5 table, and now on to the next lecture. Next up, we have list tags. List tags are used to display your data in the form of lists. There are three types of list tags. UL tag defined as an unordered list, OL tag defined as an ordered list, LI tag defined as a list item. In this screenshot, you can see that I'm using the opening and closing tags of the UL and LI tag. The purpose of the UL tag is to create an unordered list. What is an unordered list? It's simply a bulleted list of items. Alright, so that's the meaning of the unordered list. Now, when it comes to the LI tag, the purpose of the LI tag is to display the items. When we use all these tags together, the result will look like this. Okay, let's now go to VS Code and clear out your confusion and see how all of this works. Okay, I'll start off by writing the opening and closing tags for UL first. Then I'll use the LI tag to make the lists of items. Then say I want to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in this list. I'll save the file, then copy the file path as usual. And here you go. You can see the result of the unordered list that I created. Okay, let's now talk about the ordered list. The syntax of OL is the same as UL. As you can see, we have, as usual, an opening and closing tag for OL, and then the list items inside. The unordered list had no numbering. However, in the ordered list, which we are explaining right now, we have the numbering of the items. So the difference is pretty simple. It's just that an ordered list will have its items ordered by number, whereas unordered lists will have just bullet points. Okay, so here is how the ordered list looks like. Let's now go to VS Code and see in action how this works. Okay, so here I am. I'll start off by writing the OL tag, inside which I'll add multiple LI tags. I'm adding items such as milk, coffee, oil, and money. I'll save it as usual, then I'll check the output in the browser. I'll refresh the page, and here you go. We can see the results. You can also see the difference between the ordered and unordered listing. Regarding the ordered lists, we also have some attributes. You have the option of using either numbers or alphabets to list the items. You also have the choice between capital letters and small letters. If I use the capital letter A to list my items, you can see what I get. In a similar manner, small letters and Roman numerals can also be used. Let me show you. So small letters here, and here you go. Then Roman numbers, and here you go. I really hope that the difference between ordered and unordered lists is now clear to you. And now on to the next lecture. Let's now talk about the video tag. So what is the video tag used for? The HTML video tag is simply used to embed video into your web page. We can upload any type of video on our website by using the video tag. Here you can see a screenshot of the relevant code on your screen. We first have to use the video tag. We then put the sources in it. Then we have to add the video location. Sometimes your browser does not support the video if it has some problems or if it's an outdated version. Okay, so we also need to specify the properties of the video by giving values to the different attributes. For example, the width and height of the video. The controls part of the video is very important as well. In fact, the controls attribute is a Boolean attribute, and when present, it specifies that video controls should be displayed, like volume and other things that the user can control. Okay, let's move on to VS Code and have a practical look at all of this. Okay, so here I am in VS Code. You can see that I've already used the video tag. I gave width, height, control, and added each and everything we saw in the previous picture. If I click on Explorer here, you will see that I have a file called video.mp4. You can add whatever video you want. Alright, so let me change the source name here. My video is called video.mp4, so that's what I'll put here in the source. I save my file. I go to my browser, paste the link, and here you go, we have our output. As you can see, I can play the video and can control all of its features. Now, if you want to use a YouTube video, it's also possible. You will simply need to add the link to your YouTube video in the src attribute. So basically, instead of video.mp4, you simply add your YouTube link. Let me now add another video on my webpage. I will now show you how to code a video on your website in a much shorter syntax and in a much easier manner. Follow closely. Okay, so we'll just write one line of code and convey the same information as we did in the previous video tag. Alright, so first here I used the video tag, then the name of the file and source, then height, width, and controls, and done. I save the file, I open it in my browser, and here you can see the result. If you want to mute your video by default, then simply write muted here. And here you go, the video is now muted. One last thing before we conclude this lecture, keep in mind that there are three formats for video files: MP4, WebM, and OGG. These formats support all browsers except the third format, which does not support our video in Safari. So, if you're using a .ogg video file, Safari will not play the video file for you. You can use the following method to upload any type of audio on your website. Use audio tag, source, control, etc. And do remember that the OGG format does not support Safari. Okay, let's have a practical look at this in VS Code. Okay, so here I am in VS Code. I'll use an audio tag and a source name equal to 11.m4a. It's the file name of my audio file. Here we'll use controls and not the width. I'll save this file, copy the file path, and paste the link in my browser. And here you go, you can see the result. And as you can see, we can easily control the audio. Alright, let's now explore form tags. So basically, the form tag is simply used to create an HTML form for user input. The input tags you see here on screen look all the same. The only difference is the value of the attribute type. What is the attribute type? The type attribute simply specifies the type of input element to display. When talking about a form on a web page, input elements could refer to text, checkbox, buttons, and so on. Okay, so if we use the text input, it means we require text type data from the user. Like we're literally asking the user for text data. We're telling the user, please give us some text input. The radio tag input is used to select one option. So the HTML radio button is used to define the small circles you see here. which are highlighted when selected. In this example, we use the radio functionality to allow the user to select a gender, like male or female. The checkbox input tag defines a checkbox. The checkbox is shown as a square box that is ticked or checked when activated, like you might see in an official government paper form. Then we have the submit input tag, which is used to define a submit button and submit all form values to a form handler. So as you can see, the procedure for creating a form is relatively easy. We just have to use some form tags, label tags, and input tags. As you can see in this picture, we first use a form tag, then inside it we add a label tag, then we add an input tag. The label is just a text that tells the user what information we need from him. Then the input tag is used to specify the type of input that will be taken from the user. So as you can see in this example, we have label and input for first name, then again label and input for last name. Additionally, as you can see, I have written a BR tag at the end of every line. It simply means that we want to go to the next line at the location of the break tag. As we explained earlier, if you need to break any line from anywhere, you'll simply need to use the BR tag there. Okay, so that was it for the text fields. Next, we need to add a submit button. You can do this by using an input tag with the attribute type equal to submit. This input with a type equal to submit will help us submit the form. To help you understand better, let's go over the attributes one by one. Okay. So first we have type. Here we are specifying the type of the input, which is text. ID is given to attach a link once we start using CSS. Do not worry about it for now. Name is used to identify the input. In other words, the name attribute specifies a name for an HTML element. It has no specific function in HTML. Next, we have the value of this field. We use the random first name and last name here as default values in the form, but they don't really matter. When users visit our website, they can modify the values to their own first name and last name. Alright, let's now go to VS Code and see how all of this works. So first of all, I'll create a form tag. You can see that there is an action attribute, but don't worry about it, we'll explain it later. Now, let me create a label tag and name it first name. Then I use a break tag in order to move to the next line. Okay, so now I use an input type equal to text because I want the user to input some data in the form of text. The name and value attributes are not necessary. I will simply put the value attribute here. I'll give it a value equal to username. I then add a break tag. In the next line, I do the same for last name. Now, when you specify the type of the input, you can simply click on Ctrl plus spacebar to get suggestions. Since what I need here is in text form, I will use the same input as for the first name. Then for the value, I fill up my cell with the value last name. Okay, I can now save the file. Then I copy the file path. I then go to my browser and paste the URL. And here you go. We have the form that we expected. As you can see here, it's possible to edit and write whatever you want. It's just that the default values are username and last name because that's what we specified in the code. But yeah, of course, I mean, you can change those values to whatever values you want. Okay, so if you refresh your website, you'll see that the values go back to the default ones. Now, let me go back to VS Code and insert one more input in the code. I will simply add the submit button as an input. I go back to my browser and here you go, we have our submit button. The form is submitted when the user clicks on submit. Now bear in mind that in a fully functioning web page, the form will take input from the user and post that data in the back-end applications like PHP. So the back-end application will process the data that's given by the user. Right now, I don't have any back-end coding to process the data, but if you ever study back-end development, you'll better understand how all of this works. Okay, for now, our entire focus is just on the front end, and in this course we are focusing on HTML for now, which is a cornerstone technology used by most websites to create visually engaging web pages. So it's all about front end for now. In the previous lecture, we saw how input tags are used. Let's now dig deeper into the topic. So when it comes to input tags, they can either be used in form tags or without form tags. All the inputs that you see here are very useful and play a significant role. The submit and button inputs have the same functionality. The color input helps us choose a color. We'll talk about them one by one in detail. So let's now go to VS Code and see how all of this works. Okay, now I'll try all these inputs that we talked about one by one. First, I need to add a label tag. The label tag is simply used to help the user understand what's the purpose of the input, like what's required from him. Okay, so I'll put username here, and then I use a break tag. In the next line, I'll use input tag text type, a value equal to name, and then a break tag. I'll then simply copy paste what I just did and cut unnecessary things. Okay, so I put the password here. I save the file and check the result in the browser. So as you can see, I can enter a username and a password in this form. Now I'll paste the same tags again for the next input. I want an email type input here. Then I add another input. It's gonna be a submit type input. I save the file and check out the result in my browser. And here we go. We have our form as expected. Now, I don't really know if you noticed or not, there is a little problem. I haven't used the form tag at the beginning. That's why when I click on submit, nothing really happens. Alright, so let me fix this now by copying the content and putting it inside the form tags. And as you can see now, when I click on submit, we can clearly see that the form is submitted. Alright, let's move on. Now, we'll use the label tag to add gender because we want information regarding it. I'll write a radio input type, name as gender and ID as male. Unfortunately, the user can only select one option, so I'll have to save and copy paste the lines of code for male. And then I do the same thing for female. The tags will be the same, or just using the word female instead of male. And now I save it and check the result in my browser. It looks like I made a mistake, so let me fix this. Problem solved. Now I'll copy paste these tags again in order to create a section about hobbies. So I'll just edit the name, type, and value. Okay, I will create a football, hockey sections for the hobbies and some other hobbies. You can see that I can select all the hobbies or just one hobby or none of them. So the user has the option to select whatever hobbies they like. The difference between the radio type and the checkbox type is that the radio is used for one choice, whereas the checkbox is used for multiple choices. Okay, let me add a field for the date of birth. I'll use those inputs through which we can add the date of birth. First, I'll use the break tag here and then a label tag in the next line to write date of birth. Now, I'll use an input tag with a type attribute equal to date. Next, I do the same for date and time, and I save the file by pressing Ctrl S. Then I go to my browser and see the result. And here you can see the date of birth option in the browser. I can enter my date of birth in this field. Then, if I add a break tag in my code, the date and time field will go to the next line. Whenever you forget the input type, simply press Ctrl plus space bar. VS Code will give you some suggestions to choose from. Okay, now you can pick a date and time here. Next, if you want to add a time input, this is how you do it. I'll create a new input tag here with a type equal to time. Then you can follow the same process for a color field. It's exactly the same process. Now we'll create a field for the user so that they can send us their CV. I add a break tag first, then a label that tells the user what this field is for. In this case, it's for them to send us their CV. Now, since I want to receive their CV, then I'll choose a file type for the input tag, and here you go. We can see the result. The user can easily click on choose file and upload their CV. I can select the file I want from this option, then I submit it. Next, we'll see an input in which we require the user's phone number. Let me put a break tag here, then a label to make it clear what we're asking for. And in this case, we'll be asking for the phone number of the user. Okay, then I create an input tag that will be used to input the number. This option only supports numbers, not alphabets. And here you go. The user can put their phone number in a very convenient manner. Next, I'll use a new label to write telephone. Then a new input will be used to write the telephone input type. And you can see the results. The only difference is that this option supports alphabets as well. Next, let me use a new label and create a search field. Then I create a new input with a type attribute equal to search. And as you can see, the user can easily search for their file in this field. Next, I'll create a new label and write select week in it. It means you're giving the user a time interval in weeks. I'll copy these 3 lines again and use a new label input. It's gonna be a reset. And as you can see, if I want to reset the form while filling it out, I just can click on this reset button and everything will be reset. Okay, one last thing before we conclude this lecture. I can also create an input for a URL. Let me add the relevant lines of code here with a type equal to URL. I save the file and here you go. You can see the result. I can paste any URL I want in this cell. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the input tag. I really hope that the input tag is now super clear to you. And now on to the next lecture. In previous lectures, we saw how attributes are used. Let's now dig deeper into the topic and try to understand the role of attributes better. Okay, so we saw different attributes in previous lectures, like the value attribute. We can use restriction attributes in our form, which include read only, size, and disabled. Read only. Here you can see that I used the read only attribute, which specifies that the user can only read the given content and is unable to make any changes. Disabled, here you can see a screenshot in which a disabled attribute has been used. It basically specifies that the data is disabled. Users can read the text but cannot add any type of data. The data will be unusable and unclickable. Size, this input is used to give width to the data. There is a default width that's displayed, but in the case where you need to change it, then the size attribute is used. Let's see how all of this works in VS Code. So here I am in VS Code. You can see that I have used some attributes. Let's see the output in our browser. You can clearly see that we have 3 fields. One for the username, one for the password, and one for the email. Now, I'll edit the code using the attributes we saw previously. The first one will be read only. The second one will be used with the size attribute. And the third will be disabled. So in the first input, I've written read only, and I've changed the value to username. In the second input, I've written the specific size, let's say 30. And in the third option, I've used the disabled attributes. And as you can see from the results, the first is readable and the second cell size has been increased. You can increase it in the code to 50 and we see the output in the browser. And regarding the last field, which is about the email, we can clearly see that it's disabled. So the user can't do anything with the email field because it's disabled. Alright, and now on to the next lecture. In this lecture, we'll be introducing some new attributes like min, max, multiple, and placeholder. Min and max, these attributes are used to specify that the user cannot exceed the maximum limit and that they cannot go below the minimum value. Multiple, it's used with the input type file, and it means that the user can attach more than one file. Placeholder, this is a short hint that's displayed before the user enters a value, so it's just to help the user understand better what his input is gonna look like. So the placeholder helps the user in understanding how the input should look like. In this example, we can clearly see that the placeholder input tells us that you can enter numbers. It also tells us about the pattern that those numbers should follow. The user will see that he can add 3 digits from 0 to 9 followed by a dash, then 2 digits followed by a dash again, then 3 digits. The user must follow this pattern, otherwise their input will not work. Alright, let's now go to VS Code and see how all of this works. You can see here that I have value equal to username. Let me remove this and use a placeholder in the input instead. So I'll write placeholder equal to username, and here you go. We can see the result. Let me now remove the read-only attribute, and here you go. You can see that now it's possible to change the value inside the field username. The next thing we're gonna see are the min and max attributes. I've entered the minimum length as 5 and the maximum as 10. Let's now see the output. Let's now see the output. And here you go. As you can see, if I enter 4 characters, I get a notification warning me that the text should be at least 5 characters. Because that's what we specified in the code. We said that the minimum length is 5. Next, let me add an age label with a max length of 2. So I enter 4 digits here, but when I click on submit, it doesn't work because we exceeded the maximum value. Let me change the min to 20 and the max to 100. This will allow the user to put any age number between 20 and 100, and here you can see the output. It's pretty clear that any number less than 20 or greater than 100 would not work. So when I try to submit the form, it won't be submitted, simply because the age should be between 20 and 100. That's what we specified in the code. Okay, let's now discuss the pattern. I'll use this number as size and as a placeholder. Then I add a pattern here. So I write the pattern, brackets and digits from this to that. Let's say it is like 5 digits from 2 to 6, 3 digits from 0 to 9, and then similarly 4 digits from 0 to 8. I can also add a placeholder here. Let's try to fill out the form. And as you can see, if I don't strictly follow the specified pattern in the code, the form will ask me to match the requested format. So I need to be strict with that and follow it exactly like it is required from me as a user. I just need to follow the instructions. Okay. Now, if I follow all the requirements of this form, it will be submitted successfully. Let me do this. Okay, so once everything is filled out correctly, meaning that the form is filled out according to requirements, I won't have any problems anymore. The form will be successfully submitted. Okay, so we saw many interesting input attributes before. Let's now talk about the required attribute. This attribute restricts the user and doesn't allow him to submit the form without filling it. Let's see how we can use this required attribute in VS Code. So as you can see, I have created 3 labels here: username, password, email. This is how my form looks like. In this case, I can submit my form without writing anything because there is no requirement. Now, if I go back to VS Code and add the required attribute, like if I add the required attribute, this is what we will get. So here I'm leaving the email field blank. If I don't write the email, which is a required field, I cannot submit my form. Let me fill out this field and submit my form, and here you go. Alright folks, so this is how we use all these input tags and attributes together. Let's move on. We have talked a little bit about block elements before, but let's now dig deeper into the topic. So there are 2 types of display values, block and inline. A block level element always starts on a new line and occupies the full width available. An inline element is different from a block element. It only takes up space bounded by those tags. The P tag is a block level element. Whenever we use this tag, the P tag, we'll always find our text on the next line. The B tag is an inline level element and is used to mark or highlight any text. Okay, now suppose you have this window. In this window we have what we call the inline elements and the block elements. What you need to understand is that inline elements are laid out horizontally, while block elements are laid out vertically by default. An example of an inline element is a simple sentence like an H1 text. And an example of a block element is a paragraph. Let's see the type of elements that are present in HTML5. Here you can see the list of elements. The highlighted elements in blue have been discussed in previous lectures, and the others are yet to be discussed. Welcome to this new lecture on inline elements and block elements. As you can see on the screen in front of you, we have tags on the left hand side of the screen which represent inline elements, and tags on the right hand side of the screen which represent block elements. What are inline elements? As discussed before, inline elements are those elements that occupy a place according to their content width. And what are block elements? A block level element is an HTML element that begins a new line on a web page and that consumes the whole width. It creates large blocks of content like paragraphs or page divisions. Alright, so the tags highlighted in blue have already been discussed in previous lectures. The tags highlighted in red have also been discussed when we explained the topic of HTML forms. Let's now explain the remaining tags. Some of them are not that important, but still, it can be interesting for you to understand how these tags work. Okay, so let's start off by explaining inline tags. ABBR tags. We can make any type of abbreviation by using this tag. Acronym tag. It does not support HTML5. It only supports HTML4, so it's just for your general information that I've put it here. BDO tag, it stands for bidirectional override. It is used to override the current text direction. This means that you can revert your text. Don't worry if this sounds abstract to you. We will now go to VS Code and see how these tags work. Okay, so first I'll use the ABBR tag, and now I write something like www, as it stands for World Wide Web. I'll save it and I check the result in my browser. Here you go, you can see the result. You can also use the acronym tag, but it does not support HTML5. Now, I'll use the BDO tag. I write something like hello world, then save it. I check the result in my browser. Okay, let me now change the direction of the text by writing RTL here. RTL stands for right to left. And here you go. As you can see, I changed the direction of the text by specifying the direction in the dir attribute of the BDO tag. These tags are not that commonly used, but they still can be helpful sometimes. Now I'm back in my list of tags. Here you can view more tags on your screen. Big tag is used to change the size of the text. It is smaller than the heading size and bigger than the small tag. It lies in between these two tags. Button tag, it's used to make buttons. We can also modify them in CSS and make creative buttons. Site tag, it defines the title of a creative work, for example a book, a poem, a song, a movie, or a painting, etc. Code tag, it's used to define a piece of computer code and the content inside it is displayed in the browser by default using the monospace font. DFN tag, it stands for definition element and it specifies a term that's going to be defined within the content. The nearest parent of the DFN tag must also contain the definition for the term inside DFN. Okay, let's now go to VS Code and see how all of these tags work. Okay, so here I am in VS Code. I will first use the big tag. I will write some random text in it. Let's say hello everyone. Now I check the result in the browser. And as you can see, the font size of the text is somehow bigger than usual. Next, I use the button tag and right click here. And here you go, we get our button. For now, don't worry about the design. You will be able to create much more beautiful buttons once you start learning about CSS. Okay, so now I'll use the site tag and write some content in it. And as you can see, this is written in the italic font and will help our page in the search engine optimization. Okay, next, I'll use the code tag and will type something in it. Let's say Ctrl+K. I save the file and check the result in my browser. And here you go, as you can see, the result is in a different font. You can also use it with a button tag to make it stand out. And here you go, we have our button. Okay, let's now go back to our list of tags. KBD tag. The KBD tag is used to define keyboard input. The content inside it is displayed in the browser's default monospace font. Var tag. This is used to define variables in programming or in a mathematical expression. The content inside it is typically displayed in italic. The Q tag is used to designate that the enclosed text is a short quotation. The browser will insert a quotation mark around the quotation. Samp tag is used to define a sample output from a computer program. Script tag is used to make any type of script. The select tag helps us to select anything. It's also useful in forms. Alright, let's now have a look at these tags in VS Code. So first, I'll use the KBD tag and write some text in it. I'll press plus and insert the same tag and text again. And here you go, we have our output. I'll now use the var tag and add some content in it. I check the result in the browser and here you go, we have our output. As discussed before, these tags are only used for specific purposes, which is to make the SEO of the website better. If you forgot what SEO means, it simply stands for search engine optimization. It's the process of making your site better for search engines. Okay, next I use the Q tag and I write some text in it. And here you go, we have our output. The text is in the form of a quotation. Next, I'll use the samp tag. I've written some content in it, and here you go, we have our output. You can see that it has a different font. Let's now use the select tag. I write options in it in order to use the option tag. Let's copy paste this line. Then I add different options here for the user to choose from: country, iPhone, Samsung, and so on. I go to my browser to check the output. And here you go, we have our output. The user can choose whichever option they want. Now, I'll use the span tag. It is an inline tag and we use it to modify text or paragraphs. In other words, we use it to group or apply styles to inline elements. Time tag, it is used to show time in any content or paragraph. Alright, let's now have a practical look at these tags in VS Code. Here I will write lorem in paragraph form, then I write a span tag to select this specific line, then I add a time tag here, I save the file, and here you go, we have our output. It's not showing any special design, but don't worry about designs for now, just don't worry about it. Once you start studying CSS, you will be more proficient when it comes to designs. Alright, and now on to block tags. So the tags that we will see here are the following. Field set tag, it's used to create a box around the content. And the field set box can be created with this tag. Fig caption tag, this represents a caption or legend describing the rest of contents of its parent element. Figure tag, it's used to write content in figures. In other words, the HTML figure tag is used to define an independent container which can contain images, illustrations, and drawings. Footer tag, it's used to define the bottom part of our website. Alright, let's now have a practical look at these tags in VS Code. First, I'll use the field set tag and write some text in it. Check the result in the browser, and as you can see, the result is in a box form. Now, I'll use the fig caption tag and will write some text in it. You can check the result in the browser, and as you can see, we don't really see a major difference in the text. In fact, some HTML tags are not that important or necessary, but they nevertheless exist. Next, I'll use the figure tag and add some content in it. And here you go, we have our output. We can also use a text form if we want, but the figure tag specifies that we have some self-contained content. Next, let's discuss the footer tag. It has no specific function. It's only used to identify the footer section. Okay, so now if you go back to our list of tags, we have header tag, similar to the footer tag. It has no specific function. It only helps in identifying the upper part of the content. H group tag, it's used to group the heading elements. The H group is used to wrap one or more heading elements from H1 to H6, such as headings and subheadings, and it requires the starting tag as well as the ending tag. HR tag, HR stands for horizontal rule. It's used to divide the content into sections. It's done through a horizontal rule or line that is formed at the bottom of the section. Main tag, it specifies the main content of the website for search engine optimization purposes. Okay, then we have the nav tag, it's used for navigating through the header part of the content. Then we have the pre tag, it defines pre-formatted text. Text in a pre-tag element is displayed in a fixed width font, and the text preserves both spaces and line breaks. Alright, let's now have a practical look at these tags in VS Code. Firstly, I'll use a heading tag and other tags in it. I'll copy paste this and will change the tag's name. I check the result in the browser, and as you can see, we don't really see something special or extraordinary. But despite that, behind the scenes, the group of headings was formed. That's the main purpose of the H group tag. Now I'll use the header tag. It only identifies the heading of the content. Here you can see in the browser that these fonts are almost similar. So now I'll use the HR tag here, and as you can see, there is a line that appeared between the above and below content. They are separated with the help of the HR tag. Then we have the main tag, which is used to show the main part of the content. Similarly, if we use a section tag, it will identify the sections of your website, whether it is a blog section or any other content. Next, I will use the pre tag, write lorem in it. I save the file, I go to my browser, and here you go, we have our output. As you can see, there is just a font difference. Alright folks, we went over all the tags you might use while building your page, whether it is inline elements or block elements. As you may have noticed, some of these tags are very useful, while others are not that helpful. It really depends on what you're trying to achieve and how you plan to do it. Alright folks, we're now done with all the basic and advanced tags in HTML. I really hope that you enjoyed this course, and as I said earlier, HTML is like your bones and CSS is like your skin. They are both required to make a perfect body of website. When it comes to design, you'll need to study CSS. But when it comes to building the basic structure and the bones of the website, you'll need to study HTML, and that's exactly what we did in this course. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I wish you the best of luck.